Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. We have a bunch of speakers from most of the major hospitals here in Melbourne. Everyone's kindly agreed to answer any questions as they go along, and then we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. There's also some donuts left over if you guys want to take some with you afterwards. So the first speaker we have is Sathis. He's going to talk to you about his rural experience of internship. So please welcome him.
Hi everyone. Hi Matt. He used to be MUMA's president when we were in uni, so that's good. And Scott and Mikey and all my colleagues. So thanks guys for coming. So rural internships. So if you're here, well done to yourselves. Congratulations, you made it this far. All right, just a brief journey. I did my third year in KC, and then I did my fourth year in rural in Sale and Mefra, where I see some familiar faces. And then fifth year, I did all of Metro, and then I did an elective in UK where we traveled with Mikey. We even found out about our internship spots in the UK at the time. And then subsequently, I was matched to the Gippsland training program, which I'll talk about briefly after this. And then now I'm at Monash Health in a surgical year. And in terms of my priority group application, I was priority 2. So the priority ones, you don't really have to worry too much. But I heard that there's some dire situations going on with internship matching for next year, but I'll leave you guys to sort that out. Sorry. So priority 2s, I think this is N3s. This is a very scary time of your lives. Whether you're going to stay here or back to your home country or interstate. And it's going to be a bit of an issue. Also, greetings to all those who are live streaming from all over the world, I guess. I see you guys in the corner of the screen there. Sure. So in terms of my referees that I used for internship, I used my year 5 supervisor for my first rotation, as well as a 4th year GP that basically stayed with us throughout my year-long 4th year placement there. So I'm not sure if it doesn't really come up very well. Sorry about that. So in terms of your options in the Victorian region, in terms of rural rotations, there might be some of you who are ERC here, so you're pretty familiar with the regions, but those 12 are the main ones, all right? And so Gippsland Rural Intern Training basically meant that I was based in Traralgon with rotations out to Sale and Warragul. Most of these country rotations work in a consortium where there are a couple of institutions that you can rotate out to. And even if you are metro inclined, just listen up that 50 to 60% of you would come out to country anyway. I met Scott there, first rotation. So he's from Monash. He will speak to you later. But we all had a really good time in Warragul during our first rotation. We still talk about it till today. So in terms of Gippsland training, you've got, well, we had 15 interns when I was doing internship. And then at the moment, I think they have increased it up to 20 interns. So there is a lot of scope for employment out in the country at the moment. In terms of the rotations, you can see that you've got orthopedics, anesthetics, which are a bit more, I guess, special, because I'm not sure if many institutions have anesthetics as a first year, but that's that. And now they've opened up the GP components at Mefra and Hayfield, which basically means that you spend a rotation out at a GP practice and you parallel consult with the consultants. You see a patient, you work them up, you give a plan, and you just run it to the consultants, and they pretty much sign off on it. So it is a pretty good rotation, good training program, and I think most of them do come up with such things. Oh, the best photos cropped up. Anyway, I was on GEM, one of the rotations, and I got my registrar to do work for me. So she was actually putting the file back in the folder thingy, but you can't really see that there, while I was taking the photo and watching her do stuff for me. So you become really good friends, regardless of your role in the clinical team. In the country, because you really get to know each other really well. The middle photo there, it basically is an evening round, and I was sitting on the ward desk doing really pretty much nothing. But then there was a consultant and an intern having one-on-one interaction and doing ward rounds in the evening even. So that's the kind of rapport you can build with your supervisor. I thought it was quite an artistic shot, but probably not. But they said that my co-intern called me a creep for taking that photo. I was a bit upset. But anyway, what this shows is that you get really good references and you get to really interact with your consultants one-on-one, because not only is he just talking there, but he's actually teaching and ascertaining your sort of knowledge base and so on and so forth, so that they can be quite confident in giving you a good referee report. And that's me obviously doing work in the garden, because that's my style of working. So it's just me writing up patch slips for the next morning out in the garden, and my reg decided to take a photo. So in terms of the advantages, sure, you've all heard about the affordable accommodations and trying to become as economically well off as you can during your internship to buy your houses and stuff. $100 a week was what they charged us at Traralgon, and every week in either Warragul or Sale was $5 a week. So it's actually pretty cheap. So it's crazy, right? So the whole year was pretty much $2,000 in accommodation for myself. It's next to nothing. It's less than a fortnight's pay, actually. So if you really think about it, you may have some advantages, all right? It shouldn't be just the economic ones, but let's look at point number 2 onwards. So autonomy in patient care. So a lot of times it's going to be you, the registrar, and a consultant, which means that when the registrar is either at clinic or depending on the rotation, you are the person that the go-to person really. You have to take the responsibility to know your patients back to front, and then liaising very closely with the consultants, asking a plan, etc., etc. So it's really good in terms of your ability to step up as a clinician, to come up with your way of consulting patients, your style of practice that you can take with you to a metro institution later on when you want to start to specialize and really hone in on either medical, surgical, psychiatry, or whatever specialty that you want to do. Close supervision by consultants, fair enough. Great for GP training. So I guess those who are inclined to be GPs, you need to, if you don't know by now, you need to have some rotations accredited in order to be eligible to apply for GP training. And for example, the Traralgon HMO2 year, or the resident year, allows you to do ONG or PEDS and Psych and ICU as well. So there's a lot of very good post-intern training out in the country that's dedicated for GP training especially. All right. I guess interdisciplinary team interactions is something that Monash, the metro hospitals may not really have very much. I stand corrected, but in the country, for example, you get really good, close working relationships with dietitians, physios, nursing staff, allied health. You get to really learn their perspective of patient care, and you sort of subconsciously absorb it because you probably won't care about it. But you on hindsight, you think about what's happened and how we deal with the patients, and that actually helps when you go into metro, where I am now. And when you think a patient needs something, you go straight and ask that patient that allied health staff directly, that this is what we need to optimize the care. Can you arrange it for us? So it helps us get a lot of initiative because we know how to actually coordinate all of this care before we send them off to the community. All right. I guess increased rapport of consultants and good references, that's pretty standard anywhere in country usually, as long as you don't lie, cheat, steal, whatever. Social life and recreation, really good. We almost had beers almost every second night out in the country to amounts that would, all right, very well metabolized before the next morning, all right? So we had lots of social time with Scott and stuff in Warragul, and we played a lot of golf in the afternoons off as well. We even played golf with the anesthetist and the orthopedic surgeons, and I want to do orthopedics. So it's a really good way to meet people and really expand your your reach, okay, and confidence with the supervisors. In terms of teaching opportunities, because the country, and most of you might have done country rotations, they're very small group, run programs. They've got 20 students or something, and they're usually on the hunt and prowl for residents or interns to do some teaching. So it's a really good time to put your hand up, maybe even email the coordinators at the sites and say that I'm a very keen being, I'd like to help. And actually, they would ask you to run MCRs. They would ask you to run tutorials for them and so on and so forth, which can be very good for you on your CV when you apply for subsequent positions back to the city. Disadvantages, very briefly, we talk about distance from Melbourne. That's fine, you've got cars now. Issues with securing HMO2 positions might be tough. So just think about that. And I think that's on your minds, or should be on your minds at the moment, about whether if you go out the country and get your really good foundation, can you come back? Okay, and I think it's increasingly getting more difficult. And also, there's also limited rotations on offer. And please put your mobiles on silent, thanks. There are also limited rotations on offer, so you just got to be mindful of that, that if you really want to do something specialized, like you want to be a pediatric neurosurgeon, then probably Traralgon is not your place. So you might want to think about those things. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
The other thing on your mind that should also you should be thinking about your career development would be things that get you there. And in your CV, unfortunately, to the different colleges that you apply to, there's things like research, leadership, community service, and all of that other things. And unfortunately, in the countryside,
That's awesome.
except for like maybe Bendigo and stuff, there's not much research being done out in Gippsland, for
That
example.
noise in the background is
So that's one of the limitations of the research aspect. So if you can try and rush a research now as a student, or if you've done a BMSI, good on you, and try and publish that paper, and just try and maybe focus on the clinical work next year, if you've already done all the research boxes ticked. Okay. Then the last thing, I guess, would be that subconscious constant fear of missing out. I think that resonates very strongly with a lot of people I've met, that, oh dear, my metro interns are getting the best supervisors, they're rubbing shoulders with the best consultants, like the prof's bitch or something. I don't know, but like the truth is, that's not actually true, because you actually will start to learn from the ground up, and that's important. It's obviously great to rub shoulders with like the top people in the field, but that is just the icing on the cake. You need to know your stuff still. And it's not just about baking or sort of, I don't know, giving monetary whatever things to your consultants, but it's really about showing your clinical prowess, your confidence, the way you answer questions. And I think that would stand out more and make them respect you a bit more, and then give you good references, as opposed to, just being there and just baking stuff. Or, I mean, sorry, but no, we do have a lot of keen fifth years, but I'm glad so far none of them have baked for us, because I think they're just showing that they're really hardworking. And I think that's very important. And to be consistent with that sort of work ethic after you finish even the application PMCV process, just be true to yourself and just keep working hard. I guess questions you may consider asking yourself, this is my last slide. Importantly, as you leave this place, is to find out where you want to be in 3 to 5 years' time. You see yourself in BPT or a surgical resident year or wherever. And what do you want to really get out of the internship? Do you want to get your research done? Do you want to do, really meet the bosses? And where and which health service would really make that, achieve my goals? Because when you're writing a cover letter, you don't just copy and paste everything. Try to come up with a story. Like my Gippsland one, I wrote about how I was in the pub every Tuesday evening with my registrars and consultants, and that was a very memorable experience for me. Sure, all the patient care will be part of, the whole process of practicing, but obviously you want to get a good balance as well. What institutions offer the specialties is very important as well, and you can do your own research on that. The other question is about what Jack Ma said in his speech a long time ago about whether you want to be a small part in a big machine or a big part in a small machine, or small fish, big pond, etc. So you can show yourself to be a very confident clinician and stand out in a sort of relatively smaller institution, or whether do you just want to be one of the many people in a big, you can still make a change, no offense, but it's one of those things where if you get shy in such a big social, sort of experience, you may just end up becoming a workhorse, and you may sort of, not take time off for yourself and develop yourself and your confidence, because so many people call the shots above you. There's so many people between you and the top, all right? So that's one of the differences I feel that would impact the way you feel about yourself as a clinician. Okay, how much fun, very important, that you want to have, or how much golf you want to play. And the other thing is about, will going to rural actually impact my return? Okay, so just as a note, Monash Surgical Resident Years has about 19 spots, and you're obviously competing with the Monash interns as well. And coming up from the country, it was incredibly difficult to get a spot back into the metro institution. So it is quite true for not only Monash, but in St. Vincents, there were like 25 in my year, and Alfred about 20 something as well. So it's actually increasingly difficult to come back into the city. But while you're in the country, make sure you get your boxes ticked in your CV, so that when you rock up to the interview, you'd actually have a story to tell, okay? And it makes yourself look good. And obviously the references and stuff, that will be sorted when you're in the country and you work hard, all right? So these are some of the questions that you'll probably be thinking when you're going into a rural internship, regardless, okay, of the geographical location. And unfortunately, I can't speak very much for the other sites, but this is just for the Gippsland Consortium. Okay, and the last tip that I give, regardless of priority groups, apply to as many institutions as you wish, but try not to apply to where you don't see yourself as an employee. People spam the applications to about 20 or whatever it allows you to apply to. And I've got friends who have regretted the decisions at some of the places that they've been to, and that they've rather been at the 10th spot than the 8th spot, which they had ranked higher. So be very carefully informed in your decision when you rank your preferences. Priority ones, you don't really need to worry too much, really. So just maybe even apply to 4 or 5 if you're really confident. And you should definitely get a job in Metro, but it's up to you guys, really. But I applied for all Metro and only applied for 1 rural, which was Grit, right? So I was very happy out in Grit, but I didn't see myself working out anywhere else because I never really rotated out anywhere else. So it's one of those things that's really up to you, but that's my advice to you guys. That's the end of it. And if you've got questions, this is time to fire away. Internship is not that scary. No, it is. No, it's really not scary. The first few weeks are it's a bit of a steep climb, but after that you get a bit comfortable with yourself. Salary packaging may not be very good out in the country because you are under one employer, and usually at different sites you're still being paid by the one employer. So on the financial side of things, if you're a Metro intern, each time you rotate out to a country, you get to salary package again and again and again. So it's really good in terms of your tax savings, which means that you get more money, in summary. Any other really important questions? Thanks for those questions, though. It's really good. Keep them coming.
Hey guys, for those on Zoom, could you please mute your mics? Sweet. So we have Matt next to talk about Alfred. Thank you.
Is the mic? Okay. So I banged this up last night when I was working nights, so I apologise. Some of it doesn't make sense. But my name's Matt. I'm a current psychiatry registrar at the Alfred, or Alfred Health, as I've been corrected by my slide. I've worked there for the last 3 years since graduating from internship. I did a BPT 1 year last year, and I was fortunate enough to get into the psych training program this year. I wanted to somewhat dispel some of the myths that I've sort of encountered talking to some of the medical students, and also give you some practical tips about the actual application process, I think, which is probably what you're most nervous about. Oh, it's all changed. These are meant to be emojis, but they're all changed. I just want to say congratulations, and I think everyone will.
Hey, if you guys can hear us, we've lost audio on Zoom.